The LSU Tigers travel to Tuscaloosa to face the Crimson Tide of Alabama. That's our must-see game of the weekend. These are two beloved programs here in the South and two of the most recognizable brands in college football. So you got a primetime game, CBS, all the bright lights. Even as a Georgia fan, I have an appreciation for these kind of matchups. Past episodes of this podcast, I've given plenty of props and love to both of these programs and their respective journeys. LSU starts the season off with an upset loss to Florida State. Not only do they lose, but they get their tails whipped on national TV. How do they rebound from that? That's the main storyline thus far. For Alabama, a lot of new faces, including a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Can the Tide still have a hold of the SEC West and find themselves in Atlanta? That was the main storyline for them. Now we're at the collision point. LSU, a 2-loss LSU, is going to face a 1-loss Alabama Crimson Tide. When you talk about high stakes, that's this game. 9 times out of 10, the winner of this game is going to represent the SEC West, make it to Atlanta, and face hopefully the Georgia Bulldogs for a shot at the playoff. Indeed, high stakes. Few players to talk about because, like I said, we've definitely talked about both of these programs and both of these teams. Even though they have lost twice, quarterback Jayden Daniels is currently putting together a Heisman-type campaign. He's leading an explosive offense with a lot of weapons on the outside. Shout out to Malik Neighbors and those guys. And a growing, more confident running game. They're putting up points. They're looking good. And I can possibly argue that this is the best offense in college football. And I know the skill players get all the love and all the pub and all the exposure. But we got to take a second to shout out that offensive line of LSU. In a season where all the hype and buzz was whether or not Georgia or Alabama had the best offensive line in the country, LSU has honestly outperformed them mostly, with the exception maybe week 1. But honestly, they've outperformed both of those guys. They've been showing up. They've been protecting their quarterback for the most part. They're looking like a top offense. Now, with all that love that I just gave LSU's offense, we got to talk about that defense. It's been very underwhelming. Underperforming is probably not even the best way to describe that unit. If you want a big offensive passing display, play LSU. It's just been that simple this year. Coach Kelly went into the transfer portal, was aggressive, got a number of deep, talented defensive backs on that team. And most of them aren't working out. I know Denver Harris in particular, I was stoked when LSU picked him up. He's largely been not in use for that team, which is very disappointing because he's so talented. But it's not just the defensive backs that have been underwhelming. The defensive line hasn't really created the kind of pressure that we all expected. Harold Perkins in particular, star sophomore linebacker, he came in with a lot of hype this year, and it's largely been underwhelming so far for him. They moved him to middle linebacker. He was there. He wasn't the type of playmaker that he was his freshman year on the edge. So they started to mix that up because obviously you have a talented pass rusher that's proven to you that he can do the job. Why the hell would you just switch it all the way up? So credit to them for at least trying to fix that. But this LSU defense has given up a lot of yardage, a number of points, and a number of explosive plays. Speaking of explosive plays, let's talk about the Alabama passing offense. Quarterback Jalen Milroe is a boom or bust player. It's so weird. It's either he's running the ball or he's chucking it downfield. I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of their offense by saying it reminds me of a high school offense in that sense, but the results, that's what the results show. Is like either Jalen is not throwing the ball and eventually running, or he's pushing that ball downfield to a wide receiver like Jermaine Burton, who's been doing his thing. I know after that loss against Texas, it was a lot of critique and a lot of heat on Jayden, to which I don't know why they handled it that way, but that's neither here or there. Alabama decided to play Tyler Buckner, and it was just a mess at USF. Frankly, that's what it was. They were playing in damn near a hurricane. Offense was largely inefficient, and they came back to Jayden, which he needed to do because he was your best option, and clearly it's been working so far. Like I said, their passing offense has been boom or bust. Jermaine Burton has been balling out for Alabama. If you're looking for a big play from that offense, he's the man. Also, shout out to Isaiah Bond, talented player. Watched him when he was in high school, speedster. I love that he's developing into more of a dependable option receiving. So shout out to him as well. There's literally no question about the level of talent on that Alabama offense. It's just whether or not they can put together a complete game. That's really been the critique of that team. You see big play potential from that team. They're one of the scariest teams in college football. Anybody tells you otherwise, they're lying. I'm not saying I'm scared as a Georgia fan to face Alabama, because I'm not, but you got to acknowledge the level of talent that's on that team. The actual scary part of that Alabama team has to be their defense. Dallas Turner and that front four, they get pressure. They're going to get pressure on your quarterback. And unless you got a guy to pull the trigger, you're screwed. The defensive backs, while they have had on and off performances, for the most part, that defense as a whole has put together some great performances. That defense is the reason why they didn't lose to USF. That's the truth. I'm pretty confident any Alabama fan would agree with me there. So this game is really a matchup of an explosive offense in LSU versus a powerful defense in Alabama. And while all the attention is going to be on that clash, I want to look at the other end, which is a largely inefficient LSU defense that has been underperforming. They have talent, but they've been largely underperforming, versus a boom or bust Alabama offense that's still trying to figure themselves out. When it's said and done, man, the game is in Tuscaloosa. Alabama's defense has been taking care of business and looking more and more dominant. And despite the inconsistencies of that Alabama offense, simply put, they're facing an even more inconsistent defense in LSU. I think Jayden Daniels puts together a terrific game, another terrific performance, helps lead his team, but damn it, you're in Tuscaloosa and you're playing against that Alabama defense. I can't pick LSU in this one. Sorry, LSU fans that are homies and family. So, sorry. My final score, LSU 34, Alabama 37. It should be a fun game. I'm hoping as a Georgia fan that we continue our path toward Atlanta. And I'm looking forward to facing either one of those teams. If you haven't already, look us up on socials at SuplexDinnerClub. That's the home of 2 podcast projects that I work on. Mondays, Fridays, we talk college football on Dawgs versus All Y'all. We don't just talk about Georgia football. We talk about all things college football, hence All Y'all. And on Wednesdays, you know the vibes, Life and Times Pod, which is short for the Life and Times of a Restaurant Lifer podcast, where I have conversations with some cool and interesting people that I've met through my years in the hospitality industry. Let me know down below, what team are you representing? The Suplex Dinner Club family is growing, and I want to know more about you guys.